Hi, it's Dr. Josh Helman. I just interviewed Dr. Brian Vaszily, and we had an amazing conversation about the top things you can do specifically to reduce toxins that can lead to brain and other organ problems in your body, dementia, Alzheimer's, etc. So you're definitely going to want to watch this episode, but to give you a sneak peek, here are the top 3 areas of opportunity for reducing these toxins. 1 is to focus on the water you drink. Number 2 is to focus on the air quality of the places you live in. And number 3 is to pay attention to the personal care products that you use in your body and that you put on your body. So this is Dr. Josh. Peace and plants. Brian Vaszily is a world-renowned healthy, aging, and longevity researcher, advocate, and thought leader with over 25 years of experience. He's the founder of the 500,000 member theartofaging.com, a platform dedicated to empowering people with the most effective, evidence-based natural solutions to look and feel your best, avoid and overcome disease, and live long and well doing it. He is the creator and host of the Art of Anti-Aging's highly regarded online healthy aging summits, which have been heard by over 2 million people and feature the world's most renowned medical doctors and researchers. He is also the founder of Purity Woods, one of the world's fastest growing skincare companies, providing only USDA certified organic formulas that utilize nature's most potent ingredients. Brian is widely regarded for the breadth and depth of his knowledge and the clarity he delivers it with. He is also known for his unique guidance on how to overcome the choices that derail people from consistently doing the things they know are best for their health and well-being. Today, I've got an amazing guest, Brian Vaszily. So there are 10 million people worldwide diagnosed every year with dementia and Alzheimer's. And we know that one of the root causes behind dementia are toxins. So Brian, as an expert in toxicity in personal care products, what can people do to prevent and reverse dementia and Alzheimer's?
Right. Well, you've covered so well many areas, but you mentioned, toxins, and I think in one sense, thank goodness by now, most people have a pretty general awareness. The issue is that really people do not yet know the half of it when it comes to, overall health and longevity, and certainly when it comes to their brain health. It can seem like such an overwhelming area, and the more you follow this, the more it seems like, I have to live in a bubble and avoid absolutely everything. So why bother, or something like that. The good news is not that indeed toxins are prevalent in so many areas of life, but the good news is that there are certain areas that if you put your focus, more strongly on them, the payback is better for you. So when I say people don't know the half of the problem, people are generally aware that we've been hearing, and it's so true, that the air we breathe, especially inside of homes and other structures, is heavily polluted, and we can go deeper there because this is true. It's one of those key areas you want to focus on. We've heard increasingly that water, we have to be super conscious of the water choices. Tap water is, I don't care almost where you live in the United States, at least these days, the municipal supply is not even tested. It's only tested if you're talking the best testing for 90 or so different contaminants, and yet today there's literally thousands that they should be testing for.
Well, and to that point, Brian, as a specific example, the very last step in most of the municipal water places is they add aluminum to remove all the particulates, and we know that aluminum is a neurotoxin.
Exactly. Exactly. So, and let's go deeper
Sure.
in some of these key areas. And then a lot of people don't know, some are hearing that personal care and cosmetics, and I will very strongly note to people, indeed, this is a key area, and we'll go deeper there. But the reason that people don't know the half is because they hear, okay, the toxins are in these areas. They're in clothing, or synthetic clothing. They're all over the place. And they understand that there's a connection to disease, and it indeed there are carcinogenic substances even allowed in a multitude of products here in the United States. And then they loosely hear it could be, neurotoxic. What the connection I really want people to understand is that it harms your ability to make decisions now. Okay, it harms your ability because these are excessively endocrine disrupting chemicals. And then I translate that for people in a just basically it means it screws with your hormones. So then it begs the question, well, what do hormones do for us? And they're involved in virtually every function we have, every unconscious function, and certainly every conscious function. They are key to the choices we make.
Well, and specifically, just to pipe in here, is that they're not just endocrine disruptors, they're also brain disruptors, because most of these are fatty toxins. And guess what? One of the most fatty organ in the body is, it's the brain. And if you have too much of these fatty toxins accumulating, you disrupt normal nerve conduction and normal brain function, unfortunately.
Precisely. So they're the hormones. They're severely screwing with our hormones that are involved in our energy levels, in our ability to focus. As you noted, there are direct impact toxins on the brain. And what's the problem there? Well, everybody can, understand, okay, that means I should reduce as much as possible because it's going to affect my brain, and I'm going to otherwise potentially get dementia, including Alzheimer's and, other forms of brain decline. True. But what people really need to understand, again, is that it impacts your choices now. It's prompting us as a collective to make far worse choices for our health and well-being, where we are acting impulsively. You don't want to make decisions from a place of exhaustion, anxiety, feeling overwhelmed, and yet most of us live in these states today. And everybody knows. Everybody, if I asked everybody here listening, give me the essentials on how to live long and live well. Everyone can do it. They could say, well, I know I need to eat right, meaning reduce all the bad stuff, the processed foods and sweets. I know I got to sleep well. We've all heard that a million times. I know I should be exercising routinely. Everybody knows enough right now to live past 100 years old and live well. Everybody knows enough right now to do that. The problem is people can't stick to doing it. And what derails us from that is the fact that we are giving into impulses. We're making decisions from places that we do not want to be making them from. Literally, to break this down for people, you are far more qualified to go really deeper if you want to. But we make decisions from one of two places in a very general way. Either the front of our brains, the prefrontal cortex, which is our very human self. It's what distinguishes us from most of the other, animal life on Earth. It's our rational place where we make decisions that are sound for ourselves long term. Or we make decisions from what I'll call the lizard brain, the back of the head, starting with the core probably being the amygdala. And more and more today, because people are choosing things from this lizard brain self, because they're exhausted, they're frazzled, they're anxious, etc., they're going to make bad choices that disable them from doing the things that they know are right, choosing the things that they know are healthy. They already know it, and people wonder why. How does that food that does not belong in my grocery cart magically end up there? How? What's going on? This explains it. How is it that I'm sitting on the couch again today for 2.5 hours binge watching something on Netflix or binge scrolling something on Facebook or any social media? I know better. What is going on here? Again, I will tell you that there are some very key issues today that did not exist throughout most of human history. One of the biggest, one of the most important are these physical chemical toxins in products that are prompting these short-term decisions. So it could be like a downward spiral because they impact our health long-term. They do cause things like dementia. They do cause brain issues, but they're also impacting us short-term and prompting us to make poor decisions for ourselves, which is why it's so critical to hit the key areas in your life where there are the most toxins and reduce. There's no such thing as eliminate, but reduce.
Right. That's awesome. So and we could spend all day literally talking about each of these issues, but one of the topics I want to make sure we cover, because this plastics, specifically plastics in the brain, and recent studies have shown, we don't know the mechanism yet, but for some reason, the brain preferentially will suck up or somehow the plastics, you'll find higher concentration of plastics in people's brain than elsewhere in the body. I mean, one theory is it goes in through the olfactory nerve, the nerve in the nose back into the brain, but we're still working that out. But you know, the only time I could think of where you want plastics in your body, I don't know if you've ever seen the museum exhibit of cadavers, you know, where if you inject after death different structures with plastic, you can colorfully see the anatomy. But we're not talking about being beautifully preserved for an exhibit. We're talking about, we want to function, and unfortunately, the studies are showing not just that the brain preferentially has more plastics, but in general, we're getting more and more of these plastics inside our body. And so my question to you is, what can the average person out there who's worried or actually has dementia, how can you reduce the amount of plastics that we're exposed to?
I believe that recent study, there's been several studies, that recent study you're referring to said that we may have an average of a teaspoon, a plastic teaspoon worth of plastic in our brains. The average person. That's really scary, isn't it?
Well, yeah. The other piece is that we consume a credit card worth of plastic every week or every month. You know, there's some debate, and you probably have some control over it in terms of your practices, but still, you know, huge exposure. What are things that people can do to?
Well, let's start with what plastic is. So plastic is petroleum based, you know, petroleum, same, you know, derivative that ends up in your vehicle. And clearly, there's no debate when we frame it this way. But here's what's odd. When we frame it this way, there's no debate that petroleum doesn't belong in your body. I'll tell you what gets me all the time is when I do get into arguments with so-called experts, some of them MDs, PhDs, who proclaim that, these petroleum-based ingredients in certain products, no, they're not so bad because they're minute amounts. And I think they're being very short-sighted. It's kind of like that. Probably arguing with a doctor back in the 50s about smoking or something like that. There's always going to be parties, you know, that support the status quo. I can't believe I'm having those conversations sometimes, but I'm like, sure, if it was one time that I was exposed to this petroleum-based product in cosmetics or personal care or these microplastics, but this is repeatedly, day after day, decade after decade, that we are exposed to these. So where do the microplastics come from? It's not only, by the way, microplastics, it's petroleum-based anything. A good, at least around, I believe it is 1/3 of all of the synthetic chemical ingredients that you don't want to feed your body through your skin in cosmetics and personal care come out of petroleum. So at least 1/3 of all of those. So clearly they don't belong in you. These microplastics are heavy duty, unfortunately, inside of what I've been sipping here. Not this one, I hope. I mean, this is triple reverse osmosis filtered. But water, you know, the water supply is so sadly heavily contaminated. And this is not one of the things most municipalities, I started the conversation talking about this. There are select municipalities that are starting to, I believe, just like with that and PFAS, another horrible area, PFAS, that are heavy duty in most or many industrial water, municipal water supplies.
Right, the forever.
But they're not even testing for this stuff in virtually anywhere that you're drinking water. And if you think you're safe, like I have a well water where I live, and if you think you're safe with that, well, you're fooling yourself, because this is all due to runoff, from the earth above. And if you're, tapping some deep aquifer, it's coming from, it could come from large bodies, that are external lakes and so forth. And sadly, all of our waterways are polluted to various degrees with all of this ridiculous plastic that we have been using for eons, it feels like now. But really, it's just a small sliver of time in humanity. But, we've been carelessly tossing, plastics in the ocean and everywhere else we turn. And, if everybody looked around them right now, they'd be surprised. They can name certain things that are plastic, but they would be surprised at certain other things that are also plastic. If you're wearing synthetic polyester clothing, that's plastic. And all this super cheap clothing that comes off of these websites, I have no problem naming these by name because they're terrible. Temu is one of them. People buy this, budget clothing thinking they're getting a good deal. They're breathing that stuff in all day directly. So it's coming from, polyester clothing that you're wearing. Then when you throw it away, it's contributing, it doesn't just sit there. It finds its way slowly. It leaches into the earth and into the groundwater. And, that's what happens. And so if I'm pointing to a single area where I would, even above and beyond cosmetics and personal care, which I'm huge about, but there's three key areas. Okay. It's water, air, your personal care and cosmetics, and of course food. Okay. That's, the stuff you put directly in your mouth. Those four areas are super critical to focus on reducing these toxins, including these microplastics. So how do you do that in the home? Well, I'm always conscious of budget for people, because I realize that, affordability is all over the place, and some cannot. You do whatever you can. It's such a key area. Filter your water to any extent that you can, even if you don't drink, by the way, tap water. People are listening, it's like, oh, I don't drink the tap water. You're still inhaling it when you shower or bathe or wash your dishes. These microplastics, micro means teeny tiny. And it's just the sheer volume of these things. So, think about the entryways into your body. You've got, everyone knows the mouth, we eat, but what other ways are there inside of your body from the outer world? There's your skin. That's a massive way that most people overlook. Your skin is created to absorb and repel. That's a key part of its function. And then you've got eyes, right? You can get in through the eyes there. And of course you breathe. And when you breathe, you're breathing all day long, I hope, all day, every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very important, folks. And water, it's this vapor, everything off of it. So even if you don't drink your tap water, you still utilize it likely so often, so much, and it's staying there inside of your home. The vapors, or the mists and things like that, it's polluting. It's part of the contribution to the polluted air inside of homes these days. So my point is, please make a move. If nothing else, there's, this and filtering your air would be my two top after, honestly, now decades of research on this. And the third would be, and again, we can go deeper into these areas if you so choose. The third would be cosmetics, personal care. I'm almost assuming people, I shouldn't do that, are aware that you want to avoid like the dirtiest dozen foods and, and fruits and vegetables because that's an important area too. So those four.
Which have pesticides and,
and
endocrine disruptors, basically soaked in it. But here's and we'll dive deeper, but I think there are going to be some listeners or viewers who are just overwhelmed hearing this. So, if instead of saying there's one thing, there's three or four things, they'll be like, I give up. I mean, so
don't give up.
So number one, don't give up. And how, just psychologically, what do you think? Maybe just tackle one at a time? Because truly,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you've been living with these for decades. And the beautiful thing about it is when you make any shifts in these areas, especially, again, I can go 4 or 5, key areas like that. But if you get all right, so let's talk one of the best. This is a bit controversial, but if someone's asking me, putting me on the spot and saying, well, what filtration system should I get for my home? I will say a high quality reverse osmosis system. And then anybody in the know will come back with the downsides of it. It does use a lot of water, to filter. So there are some downsides, but it's come a long way, even in the last 5-10 years, the technology with it. And triple reverse osmosis means it goes through 3 stages, increasingly fine filter stages, to get virtually every type of toxin in water out. Now, one problem, it tells you how strong the filtration is it also filters out some of the good stuff in water that you want in your body. It's minerals, for example. It can filter out some of the minerals. So if you're eating even a somewhat healthy diet, though, you're getting plenty of those minerals from the foods you eat. And then there's supplementation. You can supplement, and probably today should, for many people, magnesium and these other things. But anyway, so reverse osmosis would be the best. And then there's everything in between, all the way down to your, $35 or whatever it might be, in a water pitcher from Brita or something like that. That is better, way better than nothing at all. But again, if you could do something that filters the water coming out of your faucets and indeed creates drinkable water, again, this is from a well in my own home. And I do have reverse osmosis. I've tested, multiple times, and it's really pure because of reverse osmosis. And I've been dirt poor in my life. I tell that story, in other venues. I've been super poor, so I understand if you're going to invest in one thing, though, this is the thing I would invest in. I think that today reverse osmosis systems that you can have easily installed under your sink, for example, they can run $300, $400 on up, of course, for the super premium brands and things like that. But you can do that. And then the second area would be a HEPA filter, or I know, recommend, maybe you want to chime in on what you recommend for home air purification, because you've got a great product, but I don't want to toot your horn if you don't want me to.
No. But I would say let's not even go there.
Yeah.
I like your approach, HEPA filter. Well, first of all, just to be aware that unfortunately, if you're not doing anything, the indoor air pollution for most homes that are now designed to be airtight. This goes back to actually the 1970s with the Gulf War, and where energy prices went up, and then all of a sudden, let's make our house energy efficient, which means closing the windows, sealing everything. And when we did that, unfortunately, we seal in the toxins. So what I would say, I love what you mentioned. Get a HEPA filter, or do something to filter out the air.
Yeah. And again, here too, it's levels depending on your budget. You can get one for one room. I would definitely put it in my bedroom because you spend, 1/3 of your life in your bedroom. And those are supposed to be restorative, for your physical and mental and emotional health hours. If you can't do anything else, do it there. If you have a big home, try to get it for multiple, rooms in the home, especially next would be kitchen, where, there's a lot of toxicity people don't realize from your appliances, like your ovens and things like that. So those are the 2 investments that I think are the biggest one-ticket investments that are well worth it if you can do it. If you tackle these 3 areas to some degree, water, air, and then especially the cosmetics and personal care that you are applying onto your body, not the occasional use. If you're gonna pick and choose, shampoo residue remains okay. But if I have to choose between a lotion that I'm putting on my skin with the express purpose of the ingredients penetrating and sitting on my skin, or shampoo, I will choose to go, organic, clean on the lotion. any day of the week. So again, I'm trying to be very conscious of people, but those three areas, if you could shift away to, from conventional cosmetics and personal care to organic choices, truly clean choices, free of all the horrible things in these things, because the average woman in the United States today uses 12 personal care products a day, of which contain over 168 different chemicals. And that's terrible. And again, these things, you're using them day after day, year after year, decade after decade. Shift. You change those three things, you are going to feel the difference. I feel like I want to promise everyone that. Now, maybe you've already changed some of those, but back to my original statement, you are eliminating, because you spend so much time inside of your home unit, and ideally, if you spend a lot of time in your office, get an air purifier there as well. By the way, if even in your vicinity, if you are in one of these open cubicle spaces, with others or something like that, it works if you got it near you. There's desktop units and things like that. So wherever you spend a whole lot of time like that, purify the air, drink the clean water, reduce, the cosmetics and personal care products, and try to eat somewhat healthy diet. You will feel the difference. You are doing your long-term brain health, not to mention your overall health, an immense favor. Again, on two fronts, long-term, but also those short-term energy. You're going to feel the difference in your energy, in your brain clarity, because all of these neurotoxic, endocrine-disrupting chemicals, you just cut out a significant portion of them.
That's great advice, Brian. The next thing that I find really frustrating as a consumer, and I know other people, it's the same way, they hear that about, say, the personal care products. And then they're like, well, let me go to a local store. Let me go to a health store. So you go to your local health store. And then, with me with 2 degrees in biochemistry, I'm actually looking at the ingredients and unfortunately, I recommend people start learning what's in these personal care products, because just because something's for sale at these stores doesn't mean it's health promoting, unfortunately. But here's the thing. Often I'll go looking for a category, whether it's a toothpaste or what, a skin lotion, and I won't find anything in a large, famous health food store. I won't find anything that meets my criteria. So, have you had the similar experience? And I mean, I know that you've got your own online, and that's where people order things these days. But what is your reaction when you go to stores and you see aisle upon aisle of all this personal care stuff that is toxic?
Yeah. Boy, there's a lot of ways I want to answer that. Where do I start? I'm actually optimistic and actually very happy, because if you asked me this question even 5 years ago, or certainly 10 years ago, I would have been like, man, aside from trying to make these things yourself, there are very few options. Now, the reason I'm optimistic, again, I've been deeply involved in this for decades now. And I have seen in the last 10 years, and certainly in the last 5 years, a whole surge because of demand, because of folks like you putting this on the map, perhaps myself and others, and making people aware of this big problem. So now I'm happy to see that the amount of different types of cosmetics and personal care products that are truly safe to super safe for you are on the rapid rise. Now, it is true that when you go to, especially, the bigger the box store, the more conventional the store, even conventional so-called natural food stores, it's true that you better be super careful. Don't automatically assume that means, if you're in a well-known, I'm not going to name those names, but a super well-known natural-oriented store, don't assume that means everything there is good. It's not. It's not, and you're right on target with that. I pretty much only get my cosmetics and personal care products online. I'm a research geek. I put the stuff out to the world, so I'm well familiar with all sorts of good brands because of what I do. But when I don't want to hide from this either. I also don't need to, not here to promote it either, but I'm the founder of Purity Woods. Purity Woods is certified organic skincare, especially down the avenue of eliminating the appearance of wrinkles and fine lines and things like that. And it's doing really well. It's one of the fastest growing today in the world, certified organic. Now, I bring that up only because what started that, I was already deeply, for 2 decades in this health and wellness world. What started that company for me was the fact that exact problem you brought up. My wife and I both, one day, were in the bathroom and I noticed some severe crow's feet around my eyes. Okay. And so, and she did too. And we're like, and she is actually a cosmetologist in her background. And so I've been researching this stuff for decades. I'm like, I know exactly what I want. I know what I'm going to go looking for. I know, the natural ingredients that are profoundly effective, for this specifically. And I know darn well I'm not going to, it must be organic. I went searching, and I'll say here in the United States, exactly the problem you just brought up. I could not find a single product that contained even half of the ingredients that I wanted that was clean, that was truly clean.
Right. And let's give an example for the audience. So one example that, I tell people, avoid chemicals or ingredients that you don't know what they are. That's number one. But to me, one of the biggest culprits is something called fragrance. Because we all know what a fragrance is. The problem is the word fragrance is a way for the cosmetic industry to hide and put in petroleum products and not disclose that to the public. So, and you would think, oh, fragrance, that sounds good. Unfortunately, I would much rather have something that's fragrance free, that's non-toxic, than have a toxic fragrance included.
Oh, darn right. So I'll conclude that story and then let me jump back. So I couldn't find anything that did not contain horrible ingredients, junk ingredients that, as I started this conversation saying, would impact my energy and brain short term and would impact my health long term. So I create, long story short, I had the product developed. It worked like gangbusters for my wife and I. It was the very first product. I'm like, I'm going to put this out to the world. It's so good. That was the age-defying dream cream. That's what it's known as today. Anyway, the point is I had that very problem. And then I still have that problem today in some categories of finding, things. So there are certain areas. Another very practical tip for people. I mentioned if you're going to do it, like if you can't change everything to cleaner, start with the stuff you're putting directly on your body. Now, if you can't change everything that you're putting directly on your body, change the stuff that you're putting on the most sensitive parts of your body. That's your face, especially around your eyes. It's the thinnest skin, and then your private parts, and then under your arms too. And there is, by the way, so you talk about there's no perfect deodorant yet, unless you throw on baking soda yourself and apply multiple times. I mean, there's no perfect deodorant that does what the conventional ones do, which is, reduce sweat and stop the smell, right? There's no perfect natural solution to it's coming. I know it's out there.
Well, I mean, one suggestion is if you eat fenugreek, it actually concentrates in the sweat glands. So
I love that.
That's if you eat fenugreek, that's one solution, but
you'll smell better that way. Indeed. But to stop the sweat, you can reduce it. Anyway, but there's still, we're in a golden age, or it's a blossoming age of cosmetics and personal care that actually are safe. But today, this is still the very tip of the iceberg, and most products out there, I'm very comfortable saying, are terrible for you, and some are downright horrendous. So let's go back to what you brought up. Fragrance is terrible. Fragrance is terrible because, like you brought up, first and foremost, you don't even get to know what is in that ingredient, and it can contain anywhere from a few to over 100 different ingredients hiding behind that word. I think you mentioned they get to do that because it's a trade secret how they got that smell. That's why they hide chemicals in there, because they don't have to disclose it. And they'll say, that's how we got our secret smell, that, a synthetic smell that is, for some reason, everything has to smell synthetically pretty today to feel like it's effective. Of course, I'm being tongue in cheek because but they did trick the masses with that. If it doesn't smell good, it doesn't work, but it's not true at all, obviously. And they actually, those are some of the worst ingredients are the fragrances. Sometimes they'll call them parfum if they're looking, trying to sound French and fancy. Okay. And then the problem though, is you can't look at an ingredient label and determine, oh my God, that's bad, that's bad. Because here's the big problem. There are 10,000 different chemicals allowed in cosmetics and personal care products, are commonly used here. Well, first in the European Union, and about 40 other countries. Besides the United States, there are anywhere from 1,300 to 1,600 chemicals that have been outright banned or severely restricted for use because they are known or strongly suspected endocrine disruptors and carcinogens. Here in the United States, I have to hit home on this all the time with people owning 11 ingredients, 11 versus 13 to 1,600 elsewhere have been banned. The chemical industry is super powerful here. Now, so if there's 1,600 banned elsewhere that are used here, and there's a total of 10,000 that could be used here, some of which are, you are not going to be able to read an ingredient label and say, oh, okay, that one's bad, that one's bad, that one's okay, that one's okay. I can't do that. I've been studying this for years and years and years. There are some standouts that are often used that are terrible. You brought up one to watch just because you don't know what it is. Most times something horrible fragrance. A couple others are phthalates, and that's PHTHALATES for folks. Parabens, certain parabens, especially like methylparaben. I mean, so you want to look for that phrase in these things. But then there are some formaldehyde. Formaldehyde is the same thing that you remember from your science class way back when, that preserved, the bodies in the jars and things like that. That's routinely used, and it's classified as a class 1 carcinogen. And it doesn't even make sense. And yet it's commonly used in skincare products and other types of cosmetics. So
will the formaldehyde actually be listed as an ingredient?
No, that's the problem. I mean, well, if you know, like you do, probably you're certainly better if you know your science, right? You can probably say, oh, that word means, formaldehyde, things like that in some cases.
They'll change the word. I got it.
Yeah. It's a terrible thing. And then there are chemicals that are they're called penetrators in the industry. These are really terrible chemicals because it sounds like what their job is to do. They're synthetic most of the time, and what their job is to take all the other chemicals and penetrate them deeper and faster into your body. And I can go on and on here. The point is that it can feel overwhelming. So for me, there are, the biggest thing that I look for in the United States is USDA certified organic. There's no perfect, but I know because I only have a company and I know, what they put us through, and it's strict, and I'm cool with that. That's the whole idea, because everything that we include in our products has to be grown organically to get that designation. No pesticides, no herbicides, no synthetic fertilizers, and then it cannot contain any synthetic toxic ingredients, period. So I know when I'm looking for products, cosmetics, personal care, I try to find those that are USDA certified organic. Not all products have that yet. Then I go also looking like, if I have to step down from something like that, you brought that fragrance up. I'm like, well, that's a trigger word for me. If I see that in there, I'm putting it back on the shelf, So I start looking for things like that. And I start looking at, do I understand these ingredients, or do they translate the Latin word and is it really a plant, or is it something made by a human being in a lab coat somewhere, and so that's where it starts to get a little trickier and trickier. But like I said at the start, to answer you, I see more and more certified organic products coming out. I see more and more that are at least, when I turn the label around, I know most of these things and they have very little in there of concern. And we're just moving in a very hopeful direction in that regard here. So yeah, to me, it's been actually good news compared to what it was even 10 years ago.
Right. And then another warning thing to watch out for, when it says natural, that really doesn't mean anything, because petroleum is natural. It occurs in nature. That doesn't mean you want to slather it on your skin and absorb it. And, yeah. So,
Well, it's not just natural. Again, I look for, you're right about natural, but I look for certifications.
okay.
USDA certified is a great one, but certain states have their own.
Okay.
If you're elsewhere listening to this, there's EcoCert, in Europe and elsewhere. I would say get to know your certifications, because they are very helpful. And if you do your own research, on, for example, USDA certified, what it means. So to me, it's one of the things that the government did most right. Very interesting too, by the way, that they only apply USDA certified organic to two things. And it's like, wow, they were actually smart on that front. Food, fruits, vegetables, foods, and that you put in your mouth, but also cosmetics and personal care. Not cleaning, supplies. Why did they do that? Because they are acknowledging that cosmetics and personal care are essentially food. And I'm like, well, that was one of the brighter things, that branch of the government, ever did, because, so I look for that or other certifications. And what I have a big, X at, you brought up greenwashing, I call it. And I'm not the only one that calls it that. Please, folks, this is rampant. Don't believe marketing, okay, that says organic, made with organic ingredients. I see that all the time. I'm like, really? I get doubt right away. They can say made with organic ingredients if it contains one or two. But if you turn it around, it might contain 2 organic ingredients and 35 synthetic. They can say that, and they just tricked you. And that's called greenwashing. They can certainly say, like you brought up, all natural, and it can be all natural, like you said, petroleum products. Those marketing terms, they don't mean anything. Watch for those certifications and just read those labels carefully yourself. And again, I want to pull this back for everyone, just because I do want to keep it simple. I never want this to get overwhelming. Water purification, air purification, and cosmetics, personal care, especially those that you're putting directly on your body. Start there.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
Brian, I'm curious. You're at the cutting edge. You've been living this industry for decades. My question to you is, what have you run into at conferences or by reading articles or what have you in the last 6 months that really excites you about where this whole field is going for the future?
Well, I kind of referred to it, when we talked about the upswing on products I'm seeing out there. And, it's the light side of why cosmetic and personal care companies are greenwashing people. Why are they doing that? Because the consciousness is now finally rapidly expanding about this. And that is exciting. Now, I've been involved in health, wellness research now for 25 plus years. And I remember we go back 20 years ago, and my peers and MDs that I work very closely with who were cutting edge themselves were saying things like, be cautious of processed foods and foods with chemicals. And they were being called quacks, and they were being called names. So you've got this contingent out there that will fight tooth and nail against anything, being called out. And anybody who's associated with it at the early part of it is called a quack, crazy person or whatever. And I remember, and now if you say to people, be aware of processed foods, nobody's saying, what are you, a quack? Why? They wouldn't put bad stuff in our food if, people are like, I get it.
I think some people are getting it. I think some people are still addicted.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's my point at the start. I think most people now with food get it, but many are addicted in part because of what I brought up earlier. We're losing our ability to make sound decisions. That's how I started this whole conversation. You want to think from, this rational part of your brain, and it's kind of a downward cycle until you can find a way to get the wrench in there and just stop it. And this is one very easy, relatively speaking, way, is with reduction of toxins versus a lot of other steps that take a lot more work. I'll be honest. This is just switch out to certain things and or put these devices in place, the filters for your air and water, for example. It's one of the easier areas. So what's exciting to me is, like I said, 20 years ago, we're having these shouting matches about processed food is bad 20, 25 years ago. And now there's not many people saying, no, actually chips are actually really good for you. And now almost nobody will say that, right? So then 10 years ago, when I was involved in, at least 10, 12 years ago, when I was involved in, one of the folks sounding the alarm about toxins in various products, everyone saying it then was, yeah, you're kind of a quack. Why would they do that? Why would they allow, why would our products be loaded with garbage that you want in your body? And so I saw the same pattern repeat itself, smaller scale, but it repeated itself. Now I don't see that too much. I still have resistance. I still see resistance out there. I still see dermatologists, for goodness sake. No, it's safe to use these products loaded with garbage. They recommend it. I'm like, oh my God, what are you talking about? But anyway, by and large, there's a great, it's like a very upward swing of people realizing now, which is why companies are greenwashing. They wouldn't try to trick you with things like made with organic ingredients and natural if they didn't know that people were now fast becoming aware of how terrible these products were that have all these toxins. It's a shame that they're trying to cut corners and trick people, but that's why. So I'm like, wow, here we go. Now we're on a vast upswing. Good news for people. In general, that means the market follows whatever you guys demand. That's it. And that's what I like is like, okay, now all of a sudden there's going to be this snowball effect where a lot of people are saying, you know what, I actually don't want phthalates, in my body. I don't want microplastics and PFAS in my body. And I refuse to buy your product that has it, cosmetic company or personal care company. Nope. The market has no choice at that stage when people are aware of that. And that's what I'm seeing right now. We're at this, the start of the big upswing on this. And I'm like, yes, that's good.
Oh, that's really good news. Now, Brian, was there any question I should have asked you that I didn't?
I realize I get passionate about things and then we just start to roll. And I think we cover a lot of great ground. Yeah. So no, not really. I mean, you've always been a super effective interviewer, I must add. When we've
thank you.
Reverse table had a great interview with you. So yeah, I love chatting with you and I love what you're doing out here for everyone. I mean, really, I respect it.
Thanks.
Appreciate it, especially someone of your caliber, to be doing that. So honored to be here and, help out.
Thank you so much, Brian. If people want to reach out to you, where can they find you on social media or your websites? How can people find you?
Sure. So I mentioned Purity Woods. You're going to find certified organic products there if you're interested. Check that out. And then
and that's puritywoods.com.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
PURITYWOODS.com. Nothing but certified organic, utilizing nature's really powerful ingredients. See, I can go geeky on you and go deep in the ingredient talk too that are really good for you, but I won't go there. Okay. And then you can go to the more information-oriented site. That's where we have a 500,000, people. Thank goodness, after all the hard work and years, and I'm so honored for that. We just give information, much like you do, on the best steps you could take, evidence-based for your health and longevity at theartofantiaging.com, theartofantiaging.com. So you can head there as well.
Great. And are you on social media?
I am. And, if you popped in on Facebook, The Art of Anti-Aging, for example, you'll find a group there that now has, I think, just about 100,000 people for the Art of Anti-Aging. And then you could find me personally. I've been posting more and more simply because I enjoyed on Instagram. So you could look for my name, Brian Vaszily, Vaszily, on Instagram, and you'll find my account there as well. Yeah.
Beautiful. Brian, thank you so much for your expertise and sharing today. This was really an amazing interview. I appreciate your time.
Oh, man. Like I said, I always love talking with you. So thanks for all you're doing. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Peace and plants.